Mike, welcome back. We tried
Sajid.
shooting this last week. The gods were against us, but to our favor, we've got a new location. We're at Connect Coffee.
Yeah, beautiful space.
Have you been to this coffee shop before?
No.
I've actually I ordered for you a drink. I took the liberty. Kevo, there's a drink. Yeah, he's going to bring it for us.
Okay.
It's called Kilimanjaro.
Okay.
It's sweet.
Interesting.
It's sour. It's the perfect blend. Nakwambia, it's amazing. It's one of my favorite drinks.
Thank you for the coffee.
It's a bit sweet, but it's because I've been fasting the whole day, so I need a bit of sugar.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevo.
Hey. Do you like sweet stuff?
At times.
Utajaribu.
But you said it's sweet and sour, right?
Sweet and sour. So just mix it up.
Yeah.
Kevo, what's in this one?
That's Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, Kilimanjaro is?
Got, fresh cream.
Yes.
Very sweet.
Yes.
Not that much.
Not that much, yeah? And then it's a Romeo blend, oh?
Yeah, it's Romeo blend.
The best.
Yeah.
Hey, Kweli. Thank you. How is that?
Smells like chocolate.
Yeah, it's so this particular blend, by the way, this is the Romeo blend. It's one of their specialties. What they do is they've got a history of combining different roasts and different beans from different regions, because coffee, again, the attributes for it, if you grow coffee next to flowers, so it sort of absorbs the attributes. If you grow coffee next to bananas, it gets a very caramel taste. So this sort of follows the same principles as that. And then it blends in perfectly well.
Okay.
Not kissing ass because we're here, but when I started in 2016 working at the company I'm working for right now, we didn't really have an office space to meet customers. So this was literally across the road. I'd come in and have my meetings.
Yeah.
And they used to do these stamped gift vouchers. So if you basically order enough coffee, you become like a winner at the end of the year.
Yeah.
My name was number 1, bro.
Wow.
And I won a mug.
Wow, great.
But we're back here. Have you been?
Interesting. Sorry, been easy?
Yeah.
Jua ndio kali?
Hey, Nairobi is hot.
It's crazy hot. Yeah.
Mombasa as well
is
boiling right now. I think it's that time where, in fact, I was having a conversation with someone recently. She was like, I think ACs are now going to be the norm.
Yes.
Because you try open your window, mosquitoes are coming in.
Yes.
So, I mean, like...
Yeah, I understand. It's crazy hot. But yeah, I think it's a season. Over time, maybe the rains will come. It's a phase.
It's also an interesting time to be in the car import space.
Yes, it is. I
had Moaf and Clermont, Calif Cairo.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can briefly talk about. I know you're in that space. Do you pay attention to all these things? It's something you just like. Me, I'm on my own lane. I'm doing my own things.
Well, I happen to know all those gentlemen who have been involved in those shenanigans, and I try as much as possible to avoid to be in other people's spaces. Yes. But we happen to meet in some meets. Sometimes I see someone checking out my stories. Yeah. We happen to see each other, but I'm not really quite into personal business for people, because I know that the two gentlemen were business partners
before.
Whatever's
going on with them, it's there.
Yeah, it's there.
And this is not a gossip podcast.
Yeah,
this is not season 2 of Gossip Girl.
True.
We're here to talk about the import business.
Yes.
And you came highly recommended by a gentleman known as Earl.
Yeah.
Earl was actually on the podcast.
Yeah.
We'll link his episode here.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't watched that, Earl deals exclusively in supercars.
Yeah.
So he's like the top gear caliber of car dealers in Kenya, especially when it comes to knowing about that stuff.
Yeah.
And he had very high praise for you.
Yeah.
Because it came from a perspective of importing cars into Kenya has become such a challenge.
Yes.
And he basically said, it's not something I deal with. There's a Jama by the name of Mike Manani.
Yes.
He's my guy. I tell him, you deal with the headaches.
Yes.
So I want to sort of talk about that whole process, the importation of cars, the challenges, what to look out. You obviously have a lot of experience in that field.
Yeah.
I want to understand how you got into it, where it started. Maybe you could take us back to the early days. I like doing that. I like sort of building from chapter 1.
A history.
A history, yeah. Guys, you know I love coffee a lot. I literally name my podcast the Coffee Pump Podcast. So with a caffeinated podcast, you need a caffeinated partner. And I'm happy to say that Connect Coffee has come on board as the official sponsor on the Coffee Pump Podcast. This is everything they have. My personal favorite is the Romeo blend. I first had this in 2016 actually had my first business meeting at the Chiromo campus where we're shooting at today. They've shown us love. I'd like for you to show them some love as well. We'll link everything in the description of the video. Do check them out. Best coffee in Kenya, hands down.
Well, my work experience has been pretty much in automotive, pre-import, because I've worked in FAO.
Yeah.
I've worked at Cheki.
Yes.
I've partly worked at Isuzu.
You were a sales guy over there
Yes.
at that time, yeah?
Yeah. So I've tried to be consistent to be in the automotive space. So I pretty much got into import around 2011, 2012. But now building up my social media pages, I started doing professionally around 2014 December, because that's when Instagram took a hit, because Facebook came before.
Yes.
And then now most guys are moving to IG, because IG seemed more appealing than Facebook. And Facebook, there were a lot of scamming happening back then, just the same way people
Scam
are moving
ads and
from
stuff.
GG and going to other platforms when it comes to selling cars.
Yeah.
So been pretty much in this space more than 10 years.
Yeah.
Professionally. And I've seen the industry when it's good. I've seen the industry when it's struggling. I've pretty much seen all that.
So, difference between being employed versus self-employed. At that time, obviously, with sales guys, you don't sell, you don't eat, yeah?
Yes.
This place as well, you're sort of a salesman, you're marketing yourself. What would you say is the difference between self-employment and employment from your perspective, especially when dealing with cars in Kenya? Because I come at it from this perspective. Purchasing power in our markets, much lower.
Yeah.
A car sales guy in the States,
Yeah.
I guess, has a better chance of making more deals happen more frequently, more often, versus what you're having to
and
deal
getting
with.
more commissions.
And get commissions as well. And we live off commissions as sales guys.
Yes.
So how was your sort of experience with that?
Well, I'll put it this way. You can actually get attached to a company for you to get experience.
Yeah.
And for you to be able to have exposure to what happens in a specific industry. Because most successful businessmen, even today, they were at some point employed. For them to get that discipline so that they can use it in their own companies.
Correct.
Because for you to have an 8 to 5 job and clock in at 8 and leave at 5 religiously for like 10, 15 years,
it's not
once
easy.
you move now to your own space, you'll put that into your own company. Then you can also inculcate the same thing when you have hired people, because now they need to know this is a job and it's not like, So I would say employment is good, but there is a borderline where you need to also look at it from the point of you have to now move to your own thing that you can grow as a brand.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'd surprise you, I've sold many cars just from a DM. And there are customers who have even met at the point of delivering the car in Nairobi. Either they go pick the car in Mombasa and then they come to the office and say, by the way, we spoke when I was not in the country. I wired money either to your supplier or to you, and you've delivered the car. And I have many customers of that kind, especially tech guys.
Yeah.
These guys who work on referral. They can refer a client to you based on how you've treated them before and based on how the experience was with you.
Right. And it's true, it's a small market.
Yes.
Your name and your establishment of your business will pay dividends if it works well, especially with the relationships you've built. Because as big as the market Kenya is, in a way, everyone knows each other.
Yes. It's a big and it's a very small space because I have many people. There was like last week I took an Uber, and funny thing, that Uber driver happened to know me, and he told me, "Boss, when do you fulani?" Then I'm like, "Yeah, I've been following you. How is work? Nini?" So I was really surprised because people follow you low key, based on the expertise that you have, and knowing that they followed you religiously for a specific time of years, and you've kept your name clean. That's also another thing.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That pays, again, dividends in the long run.
Yes.
I have respect for people who are actually self-employed.
Yes.
Reason being, if you're employed, you're dealing with maybe one particular segment of a company. If you work in sales, you're dealing with sales.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about HR. You don't have to worry about sometimes pensions. Everything is provided. Holidays, you take leave.
Yes.
Company is still running.
Yes.
Self-employed, you're the company.
You're the
Hakuna mambo
company.
ya leave.
Yes.
There's no every problem that arises, whether it's in finance, whether it's in logistics,
You
whether it's
sort
sales,
everything.
You sort everything out.
Yes.
So that must have been Callus's over, yeah?
Yeah.
I think before we move on to now your self-employment venture,
Mm-hmm.
the cars you were selling was mostly the Canter heavy-duty types of trucks for
Yes.
long distance, yeah?
Yes.
What would you... Because I deal with a lot of people who are looking at entering the courier business or who are entering the transport business. From the brands that you had, which one would you recommend for something that's incredibly durable, especially with our East African roads?
Well, I'll not want to advertise any company, but based on how like the longevity of specific brands, of course, the most hardy brand for commercial is Isuzu, without a doubt.
Okay.
Because from the pickups to the tippers and the matatus, we have very old matatus on the road and they're still running. People will take a facility with Isuzu and they'll be able to recoup back their money.
Okay.
And they'll be able to break even the car will repay itself. But once you have other brands like Chinese brands, which will eventually end up breaking up, because like when I was in FAO, I don't know if that's the case till today, we had some clients who would come to the office with machetes and tell you, boss, uliniuzia kitu mbaya, and I took it to Mandera in Kware, and ilipasua diff moja ama diff zote, and this is a car that's barely 6 months old. But what most Somalis used to do, or they do up to today, is they overload those trucks. So you come and realize that the truck is overloaded because it doesn't necessarily have to go through away bridges. It just needs to get the mchanga from the site to this place.
Correct.
But what I know, there are some trucks which are overloaded and some will still take the beating. So of course Isuzu takes it, and maybe because locally we don't have dealers who sell things like MAN and Mercedes zero mileage, because Sifao, the ones that they sell, I also understand they sell reconditioned, because the price for a new Axo zero mileage is over the roof, and I don't see any businessman that will invest to buy a new zero mileage Axo. Actually, tell you what, I have a client in Mombasa who is a very huge trucker. You saw the big boat that went to UG. He's the one that did that boat. That boat was carried by a Mercedes KBT. That Mercedes is still on the road till today, but it's very expensive to run. But he decided to change his model of business, now decided to take Chinese Beiben. There's one called Beiben, which is like a one axle head is like 3 Beibens, zero mileage.
Really?
So even if you, and that's a used axle, it's not even a new one. Yes. So even if you decide to go 3 Beibens, what's the worst that can happen? Even if it kufias in Rwanda, you can fix it there. So it's just economies of scale.
Again, it depends on what, to each his own, because some people, they prefer cheap, but replenishable quite easily. Some people prefer expensive, long duration. It depends on what type of business and personality you're raising, right?
Because for the trucking business, there are some drivers who actually will not take care of the truck as the owner would want them to do.
Right.
Several checks, maybe service checks, if they go to a place, things like the jack brake has to be checked. So the owners would not want to buy a very expensive truck and give to a driver that might misuse, or even worst case scenario, have an accident. So that's a bad investment, because all these trucks, they have to put them against a facility. Even if you want to buy cash, most of them will still put them on a facility. Okay.
So you've built calluses on your hand in the sales aspect. You've developed networks. You've developed relationships. Now you decide one day, Bana, this is enough for me. I'm going into the self-employment route. This is what I want to do. What sort of spurred that on? What sort of spurred the need to now just go and do your own stuff?
Well, you see, it gets to a point you have to look at the next life. Like you've been attached to a specific company. You've gotten the prerequisite experience. The next life has to be what you'll be proud of, and it's only building your brand. Because for me, I have people that trust me as a brand and pay me as a brand, and I always have to make sure I've delivered that what they paid for. Okay, so you have to look at the next life in terms of, if you have kids, You have to look at if they can inherit something out of what you built over your lifeline. So that's how I'm looking at it. Because in as much as people are attached to companies, I'm not backlashing employment. It's good.
Yeah, some
but
people stay at companies.
You
for
have to
long,
look at the next life, which is now, what are you going to build? Because even people who have built successful businesses, at some point they took a very bold decision and said, you know what, I've done this for 20 years. I have to move. Because even the customers that I sell to very expensive cars, if you ask them on a personal level, you have an industry, maybe for example, like I have a client who has a macadamia farm somewhere in Embu. That client was a banker and he left cooperative bank in 2003. And he went to start his own thing back then. But right now, when I like deliver a unit to his office, I'm almost astounded in terms of the number of employees he has, the number of trucks he has, the number of people he has put into a payroll. It's like 100. You can't overlook that. Yeah. So it's just a bold step, and of course, taking a leap of faith.
Right.
It happens.
I mean, again, with whatever's going on in Kenya today, especially within the import car market, there's been we've talked about that briefly. But on a personal level, I recently had an experience where we bought a car. And I don't want to highlight which showroom but we bought a car that had the mileage of, I think at the time when we bought it, about 45,000 kilometers. Used it, it was okay. There was some trouble, when you go over 100, the steering was vibrating. So there was some stuff that just started.
Something was off.
Yeah, things just started escalating within the car. And it was a Toyota. So as time passed on, there was stuff happening to the car. We were like, for a 44,000 kilometer car, this is very odd on the mileage. We decided, okay, let's sell it. And as a family, we got, Windies, normally we pull our resources together. And like father, brother, son, we all come together and decide what we're going to do. So we share our resources. Now, when we're trying to sell the car, there's a gentleman that came and he said this car is not, at the time we had done about 70,000 kilometers. He was like, this is not a 70,000 kilometer car, boss. This is a 200,000 kilometer car.
Wow.
When it left Japan. We're like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, you need to do this, scan the chassis number on this website, which I wasn't really aware of at the time. And it shows it left Japan at 200,000 kilometers. So obviously we went back to the showroom and said, this is daylight robbery. You guys basically screwed the pooch over here. Props to them. They admitted they messed up and they gave us a very good deal. But that started picking my mind. If this is just not me, there's a lot of Kenyans here who are generally wondering, well, let me phrase it this way. There's Kenyans who've come into money, all right, or they're earning stuff. And I think part of seeing yourself grow through your career is buying your first car, which is a very big and monumental step, especially in any person's life. This is a big achievement. But there's so many complexities. There's so many things, like the car showrooms where who do you trust? Who do you go to? What's secondhand? What's not maintained? What's just furbished? So I wanted to get you on because you deal heavily in this car business. What are telltale signs? Actually, let's even put it this way. How does someone who approaches you wants a new car, how does it work? What's the process of working with Mike Manani, who has 300,000 plus followers, who's one of the biggest guys in the import business here? How do you work with customers and how do you guide them from finding a car to delivering it to them and to the steps they should be looking out for?
Okay, so the first thing we always do, there's something called a KYC. I know your customer. So we have to do a KYC process with you. We have to know what do you want, what's your budget, and what will you be using the car for. You want a family car, you want a weekend car, you want an extra car. So based on that, you also tell us how much you're looking to spend based on, of course, how much the cars are retailing at. So for example, if a customer is looking for, let me give an example. Like yesterday, I posted an Audi SQ5. I've happened to sold a number of those, and when I spot one that is fairly priced, I post it. Funny thing, I actually got about 11 calls yesterday.
SQ5 is the sports one.
The performance.
I think I drove that day before yesterday. Vish, we drove the SQ5, the Audi A5. Oh, sorry, A5, different car.
That's an SUV, that's a performance SUV. So customers that would come based on looking for a unit like an SQ5, that they're specific, knowing I'm looking at a performance SUV. So my options would be something like a Macan GTS, or if it's Mercedes, either GLE or a GLC, depending on the budget. So on the three models that the customer would be open to, if maybe we are not finding an SQ5, they still have to meet the budget that they have, because the budget is the same regardless. They'll tell you, this is my budget to the roof and I'm looking for this car. But if we can't find SQ5, this is the alternative, but the alternative is more. So we have to either be with the SQ5, give it maybe a week or two, we see if we can scout for a unit that matches what they want. So our process is very simple. We know what you're looking for.
So you actually do that entire process of sitting down with the customer. What do you want? What's the purpose of this car?
Most cases, like a customer would come to the office, we take them through the process, but 90 or 95% of customers, it's WhatsApp and phone call.
Yeah.
So we would recommend units based on what you want.
Have you ever changed customers' opinions? Maybe they come in looking for something, and then you speak to them, and they're like, "I want a maybe a 2-liter Subaru," and you're like, "What's the purpose of the car? Why do you want it?" Do you ever have that conversation?
We could change the unit that you want based on the feedback we've gotten.
Correct.
Like there are customers who want something like an X-Trail or a Note. I could tell a customer that based on what we've had other people complaining about locally, this unit has an issue with the gearbox.
Yes.
And if you're looking at a high mileage, let's say 80 plus, this is a unit that will maybe in 2 or 3 years have a problem with the mileage, and maybe you'll come and say the unit was not good, because we're dealing with used cars. And in most cases, what most exporters or most dealers don't want to be honest to it, they want to tell you that it's a very new car, but it's a used car in Japan, right? So even us that we are bringing the car to sell to you from Japan, we don't have any history of the car. Even the supplier will only look at the auction sheet and say, this is a car based on what the records look like. This is a good car. But we cannot say 100% that we know fully the condition, because sometimes there are things that could happen, and we are based on if the car has a recall. Like there's some cars which overheat, like if Audi Q5 has an issue with overheating on third gear. I've actually had a Q5 specifically that I brought in for a friend, and even before I delivered the car, it had already drained the coolant. Really? But I went online and Googled, and I noticed it's an issue with the benign 2-liter, which is on A5 and a few other models of Audi. Yeah. So there are some models which we can advise and give disclaimers. If a customer wants a specific model, this model has an issue from the maker, maybe they changed this issue from 2020. Like for the CX-5 diesel, there were some which had issues. But once you get a CX-5 here, they have to do the junction pipe or a DPF delete eventually, depending on if you do long drives or not. So these are the prerequisite things that we advise a customer to do if they're looking to buy a specific model, because we know the models which have problems and we know the model which don't. So we can change your mind based on that.
Which is great, because let's say I'm looking to get a particular car.
Yeah.
You already have the know-how of what the car does, what its position is, what the weaknesses are, what the strengths are to guide. Okay, so we do the KYC. Then what's the next step? Because you deal heavily in imports, right?
KYC?
Yeah.
Get to know how much the estimates are in terms of the budget. Then now from there, we scout for a unit. We do quotation. Then after getting a quotation, we get a first deposit, either 50% or 100% of the cost and freight. Cost and freight is the cost to Mombasa. Yeah. Then once the car gets to Mombasa, after a month, we give you an e-slip. You pay the duty, or you can even wire money to us. We can pay the duty on your behalf, and then clear the car. Okay. And then that's it. If you need a special number, there are different costs for the special number depending on what you want. Triple is like 60,000.
If I wanted to get a custom number, how much would it cost me?
Like legit, it's 1,050,000. But of course, you have to charter something for them to hasten it, because this is Kenya.
Premium services.
Yes.
M-Pesa Premium.
Yeah.
So I want to walk back a couple of steps. Now, one of the major issues with the car importation business in Kenya is the landed cost. you could purchase something for $1 million bob, landed here, but by the time it comes, KRA decides what gods from the taxes have come up and influence their decision making.
Yes.
And then you're paying maybe 1.4, 1.5.
Yes.
Which for a person who saved up 2-3 years of wages, that all of a sudden becomes a huge challenge to accomplish this car. So I wanted to understand that tax perspective, especially when importation of cars. What is it? How do you sort of go about protecting yourself from it? What do people need to know about that?
Well, I'd say, based on my experience, I've actually been in a position to take customers to KRA to dispute a certain ruling, because what happens, they call them rulings. So rulings is what KRA will sit in a board meeting in Times Tower and say, maybe something like Mazda CX-8. Actually, that's a model that has recently been revised. This one maybe based on it being a premium big Mazda. We are revising the taxes from 900 to, let's say, 1.1 or maybe 1.2. And maybe we had quoted the customer 900, and maybe when the car gets to Mombasa, it's 1.1, 1.2.
So without any warning, without any notification, they can just decide.
So there are specific models which we will give disclaimers to customers that this car, the duty could change. Because if you look at it overall, if you're looking at to import a specific car, the landing cost will still be cheaper than what you're getting here in most cases.
Okay.
So it's only that there are people who would opt to get a lower mileage or a maybe much cleaner car that can either be the same cost or higher than what people are selling here in Kenya, because the Kenyan market is mostly flooded with units that are either high mileage or they cannot disclose the auction sheet, or sometimes they can alter the auction sheet. So we normally give disclaimers on some models, and it's happened severally because customers that are regular importers, they would know that it could change. Like I have a client who I've sold more than 10 cars, a very big Mercedes guy. We brought, when the GLE W166, the coupe, the 2018, that's ending in 2019, because 2019 there is a new GLE. I know you've seen it.
Yes.
That GLE, when it came into the market, we used to pay, when it was fresh, we used to pay a duty of 1.4. But they doubled that tax. Actually, almost doubled they made the tax to come to 3.4 back then for a coupe, because there is the wagon and the coupe.
Why would they increase it that much?
Because they'll just say this based on what maybe DTDOB is telling us the figures look like. This is the CRSP, because the CRSP is the current
CRSP retail stands for?
It's a current retail selling price.
So what I'm gathering here is KRA basically adjusts the price of cars based on how popular they are, how well they sell.
Yes.
And maybe to compare it to the UK government, where you're purely taxed based on the engine size or something along, and it's there. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Don't you think what we're doing is a pretty outdated way of taxing cars?
It's very outdated, and if dealers would come together and sit down with KRA, because the problem is actually KRA. If you ask me, there are cars which don't make sense to pay a duty of over $1 million. Subaru XV, the new one, the GT7, you pay around 1,050,000 Kenya shillings. Initially, it was around 700,000. I still feel 700,000 for a 2-liter. Naturally aspirated Subaru is also on the higher side, because that car in Japan, you buy it for around 1.4 million yen. But you come here and pay a duty of 1 million Kenya shillings.
So by the time it gets here with, let's say, your markup, you're looking above 2.5.
It's thereabout, depending on the condition, because all these cars, it's about condition. We normally disclose the conditions of the cars. There are some cars which have accident history. There are some cars which are very clean, and some cars which have minor accident history. They could be sold slightly cheaper than the market price, but the mileage is lower. So if the customer is willing to take a risk, because that's what actually ends up in most showrooms here. But of course, the showroom owners will not disclose to you.
That,
even suppliers that we sell to would buy such cars, because that's what we normally call deal cars. Because someone would say this car is 32k mileage and I'm selling at 2.4, but maybe his landing was too mic, because it had maybe panels like the doors were exchanged in Japan, but of course they repair them very well. But we disclose such conditions.
Disclose that information.
Because I remember there's an Auris I did, a KDD.
Yeah.
That Auris, had just one panel replaced, and the price was very good. They rated it as a 4.5, but it had an XX, because XX is normally the exchange history jargon for auction. So they changed one door, but we got that car back then at around 1.5, because right now our race is over 2 mic.
Okay.
So if the customer is willing to take a leap of faith, there are some units which are cheaper than the market price in Japan, and it's only one panel exchange, because sometimes when these cars go to auction, we have a possibility of telling our supplier to apply for pre-inspection, so that we know if there is any defect.
So basically, when let's say we'll use I order a car with you.
Yeah.
We pick a Nissan GTR R34.
Yes.
And the telltale signs, you basically work with me and we get an inspection sheet done from Japan.
Yes.
That tells us this is what the condition of the car is.
Yeah.
This is the state it is in before it comes
Yes.
in, right? And so that's one of the things people should look out for.
Yes.
Okay.
Genuine sheets, because there are also sheets that are altered, because you could just take that sheet and put it in a like maybe JPEG to Word and alter that thing and then return it to JPEG.
So maybe I want to talk about the KRA aspect, but maybe this is a very good point. So what are some things that folks should look into when purchasing a car? Like obviously scanning the chassis number helps, but what are some things that you would advise people to just check in local car show?
Okay. It will depend on the market. Of course, the main market is Japan. Japan is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Because Japan, you get almost, it's very easy for the end user and the exporter or the supplier to buy a car from Japan. But there are markets which are very crafty, like SA, South Africa, Australia, Thailand. Thailand is also a market whereby cars are really properly used.
Yeah.
And once they get exported to Africa, they get reconditioned. So the pointers or the telltale signs that you need to look at, of course, is the Verify QSJ. You need to put the chassis number there for starters. Now, the Verify QSJ is just for the mileage, but now for the body, you have to look at the auction sheet if it's from Japan.
Auction sheet.
Yes.
So that tells you the condition the car was in.
It tells you, normally it has details of the car on the top. It has a diagram showing like a car diagram. It will show where the scratches are on the car. And then there is sales points, and then there is defects.
Yeah.
So sales points is things like sunroof, leather, spare key, what else? Generally things that can add value to the car for you to attract a buyer to buy it.
Correct.
Then defects are now based on it being a used car. Things like scratches on the body, wrinkle on the seat, maybe things like EG lamp. EG lamp is actually, that's a check engine in Japan. So they normally write it EG lamp. So
that means a check engine.
Because I can read Japanese sometimes. There's some things that I can read. So it's very easy to check this is a unit that has a check engine.
Yeah.
So pretty much that. So it's sales points and the defects.
Are there grades in terms of the cars? Is there a grading system for the?
Yes.
What is the grading? Is it like 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5? Or
there is
like
grade 0
which is
to S.
Okay.
Grade 0 in most cases
Japanese S is like pristine.
That is like 0 mileage.
Okay.
So grade 0 is like a flooded car, or a car that in some cases that has had hail damage. We normally call it hail damage because in Japan there is hailstones.
Yes.
So when hailstones come, they inapiga gari. So there's a car that you find it has some marks on the bonnet, on the, in worst case scenario, on the glass, some cracks. But I've actually bought hailstone cars.
Really?
Funny thing, even for myself. And you'd be surprised the way Japanese are very strict. They'll call this car a hail damage car. But when the car gets here, it's a very clean car.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it happens sometimes because it depends on the auction house. Because in Japan, there are some auction houses that are very strict, and there are some which are less strict. Like there is the most strict auction house I know is TAA and HAA. TAA is for Toyota.
Okay.
Toyota Auto Auction, then HAA is for Honda.
Okay.
But TAA has more units. So if you buy even a grade 4 from TAA, there's a possibility you'll end up with a cleaner car than a grade 4.5 from USS. There's an auction house
So
called
Japan, it depends on what auction house you choose from,
Yes.
and those auction houses have certain criteria
Yes.
that they abide by. So the grading system is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, S.
There is 0, 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 3.5. Now from 3, it's 3.5, 4.5.
Those are very clean.
Then 5, then 6, then S.
Okay.
Yes.
And the inspection of the cars, I'm assuming you have your own contact in Japan.
Yes.
Who you've worked with over years that
Yes.
basically goes and inspects those cars.
Yes.
Did you build that relationship? Did you find someone locally? Did you have to travel to Japan to do that?
Yeah. Okay. Back then, there were some suppliers that used to come to Kenya.
Okay. Yeah.
And when business was good, because right now, like Pakistanis have flooded Japan, so back then suppliers would come.
There's so many Pakistanis in Japan.
Yes.
Eh?
So they would actually, when I was starting to build Manani imports, a supplier would DM me, hi, I'm in maybe Hilton, because Hilton in CBD back then was really good. So I'm in Nairobi meeting a few people. Would you mind to have lunch?
And they found you on social media.
Yes.
Okay.
Because like there's some suppliers that you can find, they can find you, and there's some suppliers which I also found when I was in my previous place of work.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you build those relationships.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So then there, obviously, then your point of guidance as to what's clean and stuff.
Yes.
Japan is a very interesting place, especially from our family.
Yes.
Dad, initially, when he started his business,
Mm-hmm.
he was selling secondhand parts. And they would literally go to Japan, spend 6 months, find these warehouses
Yeah.
and basically
Katakata
the cars,
Yeah.
work it, send it to Kenya. And it was quite a profitable business at that
Yeah.
time. And Dad
Yeah.
always says it was hard work, but
Yes.
it was work that built our family up
Yes.
to a place where
Yeah.
it was credible. They could sustain themselves.
Yes.
And he always has respect for the Japanese culture.
Yeah.
There was a driver he had, I think it was Orina or Kamau. They basically went and stayed there 6 months.
Wow.
This is a Jama who is now from Shag's side.
Yes.
He basically adjusted to Japanese culture.
Yes.
Imagine that over there, like the diet, especially the
Wow.
change.
Yes.
And this we're talking now early 90s, late 90s,
Wow.
because it was a completely different place.
Yeah.
Then Dubai opened up.
Yes.
And then Dubai sort of killed the market.
Yes.
I guess it started flooding in a lot of stuff. So
Yeah,
people
yeah.
didn't really have the need to go to Japan.
Yes.
Now, I want to sort of move from Japan back to the element of taxes and KRA.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's going to change? Because there was something, in fact, we were discussing this week at work. There's a new tax they're going to propose on cars. Is that something in play, like a 2% on top of anything you purchase? I'm not sure if that's...
I had there are some proposals for the Finance Bill 2025.
Yes.
And I'm not quite privy on the nitty-gritties of the finance bill yet, but I know they'll always cook something. But, you know, there was a time KRA was saying they want to have a Kenya Revenue Service, not an authority. But for them, they'll always be they will always be an authority, because they'll give a ruling and say, we've revised taxes for this car to this. And they'll not tell the general public, they'll not tell the agents. The agents will come to know this is the set of rulings after they've already decided, right? There's some customers who would fight with the rulings and win, because I know even a friend of mine who successfully fought a ruling for GT7, the XV, and he won, but now the car stayed at the port for 4 months.
So what exactly happened in that particular
case?
So
he wrote a letter to the commissioner saying, this based on the CC, based on this is how much the duty should be paid. But you see, the issue that normally happens is they give a ruling, 5 people pay. They pay over and above what was being paid before. So ukikuja complain, they tell you, boss, ndo hii, angalia huyu amelipa 1050. Why are you complaining? If you want, your car will be auctioned. So now everyone follows suit. So we end up getting kunyanyaswa tu. Because I'll tell you for a fact, it's not an all beautiful story in terms of even getting to have the car from Japan up to here. Sometimes we get to have crazy arguments with customers. This is how much you quoted. This is how much the duty is. And KRA will always tell you you're the one who misadvised the customer, because I've taken many customers to Times Tower at the valuations office. Even during COVID, there's a customer who brought a Velfire from Singapore, the fully spec'd one with double sunroof, nini power seats. They gave a CRSP from 5.6 million to 11 million of that car. So that's more than, it's almost more than double. So in such a scenario, the customer was to pay 600,000, they pay 1.8 million. And this customer will tell you, I'm buying a Velfire for 3 million. For 3 million, I will just add $1 million and get a Prado. It's not making sense, because these cars should be landing around mid 2.5 thereabout. And to be honest with you, there is nothing the general public will do if KRA will still behave the way they're behaving, because they'll just wake up and say, ini CX5 pandisha. Ini pandisha. Because even the CX5, we used to pay 2 liter petrol. I have, my sis has a KCX. I think I brought in for her in 2019. She paid a duty of, I think, around 490 or 500 back then. Right now, the duty is around 700, 800. Same thing for diesel. Harrier, the turbo one, it's almost $1 million. Because also they've tried to structure the depreciation as the highest depreciation you can do is 65%. 65% initially we used to do 70%. So there's a difference of 5%. Your difference
is when
of 5%.
You're depreciating the car.
Yes. That 5% difference is a lot.
Lot of money.
Because unapata, there are cars which the CRSP is 21 million. Like for example, a car like LX570, the CRSP is 24 million. We used to pay a duty of, I think, 3 point something. Right now the duty is 4.2. Just based on that 5%. So
you have oftentimes, especially with Kenya, we're both Kenyans. We love it quite a lot, but rather than fight against the system, there's the notion of let's work with the system.
Yes.
So I guess it's important maybe, and you can agree or disagree with me, but I think sometimes maybe you just have a connection at KRA. We can sort you out.
Let me tell you.
And I'm coming at from this perspective. Like anytime I'm look at this. Visa imechelewa, passport imechelewa. We know what needs to get done. We don't need to say it on camera, right? We'll go. Let's just call it premium services.
Yes.
In Kenya, when it comes to government services, I end up using let's say 90% of the time, I'm using premium services to get stuff that should be accessible to the common one.
Yes.
I think this car business, when you and I sasa tunaletea at 34, tutatuma premium services too.
Sasa, let me tell you, KRA would want to give rulings on cars, but they're losing revenue. Number one, less people are importing and it's messing businesses. Number two, their staff are benefiting. And I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritties of how they benefit.
Yes.
Because they know. There's officers sitting in, I don't know, BCO, blah, blah, blah. So all those guys get a cut. And pesa yote ingeenda kwa zakayo, but now they are not getting that money. So they just give rulings, but they're losing revenue.
By the way, guys, for those guys that are watching, it's not like we're saying Kenya is corrupt. To be honest, all nations have that aspect. USA, guys who are 131-year-old collecting pensions. Clearly, Doge and Elon Musk and Trump have exposed that. So it's at all different levels. What we're trying to say is life is short. We don't have time to fight against the system. Sometimes you just have to maybe learn to work within the confinements of that space.
Work your way around it.
So okay. Gari land in Japan, in Kenya at the port, you'd handle everything from clearing at the port to dropping it and basically getting it shipped all the way to the customer's place. Yeah. Okay. So then you're the guy that handles the tough work.
Yes.
How did you come across Earl? Because Earl seems to really he puts you on a pedestal, and ever since he mentioned you on the podcast.
Actually, when we talked a bit when he was in the UK back then, pre-COVID, but when he got his VAB, when he actually introduced the spotter file thing, because I actually credit it to him myself, because initially in Kenya, I think he's the only guy that I can say has made spotting of cars go viral. So when, of course, we met back then, we just connected, and I didn't quite know exactly what he was doing back then, but I could see him posting very expensive cars, Paganis, Bugattis, name it.
Commission on those must be Tamil, bro.
Yes. So we've been friends since then. His girlfriend and my wife are good friends.
Okay.
So once in a while tunapatana,
But maybe highlighting on Earl. Earl doesn't deal in simple cars.
Yes.
Earl deals in the 1% cars.
Yes.
Basically, these are the Paganis, the
Super
Bugattis,
high-end.
the super high.
Yes.
From a guy who came from writing blog posts
Yes.
and basically using that medium of the internet to connect buyer and seller.
Yeah.
When I heard that story, when you meet Earl, you can't tell it.
Yes.
And I think success should again reflect in its own image.
Yes.
It's only when I did the podcast, when I got to meet him, when I actually got to look deeper into who he is. That is a big boy.
Yes.
That is a big boy. And the thing is, he also puts out, in fact, one of his videos that got controversy was the car, the how to spot cars.
Yes.
Which when you go to a garage, what to look out for.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's always putting out good information like that. But you don't do that approach with social media. For you, Nigari too?
Well,
do you want this?
It depends on, for him, he's more of, he has a passion of photography. And I tend to believe based on also like his like what he really wants to do in terms of writing. Like both of us are car guys, but I'm more of a low-key kind of a person. And I'd say partly he's good in like taking the videos, nini. So kila mtu akona path yake. Everyone has his own path, because what I normally say, there are people who would work the way they want to work their way, and it will still work. But for him, of course, having to make sure that you have content.
Yes.
Almost every day, and it's like a 5-minute video, and then but it takes like 30 minutes to maybe book for a unit, take it to a certain location, blah 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 blah.
There's a lot of work involved.
It's a lot of
behind
work.
the scenes.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a few questions about cars. Sasa, let's talk about SUV. What's the best budget SUV, especially in Kenya? Because a lot of families are now sort of moving towards that make, because these are young families, they're comfortable cars, but we have a lot of options in the market. What would you recommend personally?
Well, I'd recommend two. The first one I'd recommend is Mitsubishi RVR. You can get that under 2 mic, or let's say 2 mic on the dot.
Yeah.
And the second one is an X-Trail.
Okay.
Yeah.
X-Trail compared to Harrier, what would you say are the differences? Like,
well, the price for like importing an X-Trail in a Harrier, that's like almost like $1 million or 800K at least. Because a decent Harrier, you need to get it at around 2.9.
Yeah.
Landing, and that's a ZSU.
Yeah.
ZSU is the 2-liter natural aspirated.
Yeah.
And now there is an ASU, which is like a 2-liter turbo, which is more like the NX.
Okay.
So Harrier would be, of course, over the roof, but it being a Toyota, both the ZSU Harrier and an X-Trail would be CVT, but the Nissan CVT is not well built compared to the Harrier CVT.
Okay.
So you tend to have less issues on the Toyota vis-a-vis the Nissan. Because the issue is you could get an X-Trail that is, you're landing it at 2.2, and that's not even 80, 90K. That's like 60, 70,000 kilometers, depending on X-Trail. Because X-Trail, there is 20X, XI is like the highest trim.
Yeah.
Then there is Extrema. So all those, depending on what trim you're getting.
How would you, sorry to cut short. How would you stack up the CX-5 against those two, the Harriers and the Nissan? In terms of just, you've seen the CX-5, obviously the features inside are insane. But heated seats, dash display.
I actually had one and sold last week.
Yeah, you told me, the white one, right? Yeah.
Well, I've had a couple of CX-5s. I had the old shape. I've had one I brought and sold, and I had this one, but I'm not sure whether I want to bring another one because the CX-5 space has been too flooded right now. Okay. So it's not value for money for a businessman.
So the price has
but
really
consumption, the price is really competitive here. When you bring a CX-5 to sell, here it's very competitive in terms of there are too many.
Yeah.
And there are too many different trims.
Yeah.
There is the XD, if it's with cloth seat. There is XDL with the leather.
Yeah.
There is the 25S L package, which fits the 2.5 liter petrol. There is the 2 liter petrol. There are some which don't have power tailgate. There are some which have. But in terms of the build quality,
Yeah.
of course, I would give it to the 6.5. What I didn't like about the 6.5, especially the new one, I'm sorry, is lots of body roll. That car on past 120, it has a lot of body roll. I think it's too big, and they didn't factor to make sure that the suspension is a bit stable,
Right.
and the wheels are not as big as the car.
It's a bit like the Prados, the old ones. Remember the 2015 ones, which
Yes.
when you go above, they're a bit wobbly.
Yes.
Center of gravity is a bit higher.
Yes,
compared
because
to
that's
that
what I
car.
experienced with what I sold,
Yeah.
but that's not the reason why I sold it. It was a good car. The mileage was good.
Okay.
But the older shape 6.5, it was a bit compact.
Yeah.
And I could do even 140 without feeling that it's wobbly. But looking at all that, I think when it's because for us sometimes we buy cars looking at if I'm going to get my value. It's not like we're just buying for consumption.
Yeah.
I would still buy a Harrier,
Yes.
the ASU 65, which is the foil turbo.
Okay. So that's your recommendation then.
Yeah.
We were also talking the other time about petrol versus diesel cars.
Yeah.
I think you've heard it several times that
Yes.
don't buy diesel cars because diesel in the country is not too pure.
Yes.
Tanuki,
Yes,
if you're
I saw
familiar,
the
he did
video.
something with
Yeah,
V-Power.
yeah,
So people start questioning how good these things are.
Yes.
But is there a genuine difference between buying a petrol versus diesel car in Kenya because of quality of fuel?
I wouldn't look at quality of fuel when it comes to buying both cars, but I'd look at the maintenance of either cars, because I know the diesels tend to be more sensitive in terms of the service, and you need not to exceed service more than 1,000 past the service mark. And the fuel quality could be a factor to consider, but not so much, because the issue is that most mechanics in the market or in Kenya today have already told the consumers that diesel is especially for the Mazdas, has to do a DPF delete or an AdBlue delete, because for Prados it's either AdBlue, Mercedes.
AdBlue, is a big thing I've seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think if it's diesel, I would go for the 3000 cc diesel. That those ones work quite well.
Yeah.
That the mid cc diesels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as we're winding things down, obviously the car import guys are coming under a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah.
There's been a conversation about cash flow issues.
Yes.
You going to a dealer, you giving money, and them then saying, "Oh, money got caught up, orders were messed up, stories and all that stuff."
Yes.
How do you sort of protect that image again for the car guys? Is the reality of the people that are saying that in the market, is there genuine concern for cash flow issues in Kenya, or is it just mismanagement of cash funds?
I would say it's mismanagement, because in as much as the economy is hard, remember the client has paid you, right?
Correct.
So unless your overheads are exceeding what you're making, but that should not be a concern to your customer, because there's some customers who would actually prefer a briefcase dealer sometimes that is trustworthy than a dealer that looks very big and the overheads exceed what they're making and they're eating into your money. Because if a customer pays you 5 million, for example, for something like a GLC, what's the reason for you not to deliver that car? Because what happens sometimes is dealers would buy different units. Then you find maybe the unit that a customer has paid 5 million, that doesn't have a problem, but he has some pending balances on other units, and suppliers would not release documents for all the units that are pending on or what the balances that are out to be paid. And that's what happens. So what happens if it's 6 cars, he ends up holding the 6 documents. The customer expects the car to be cleared. The car is sitting in a CFS, no documents. I can see my car here, but I cannot take it. So it's not a cash flow issue. It's either a mismanagement issue.
It's a personnel issue.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess the business is dependent on the individual. Himambo, your cash flow and so on and so forth.
Yes.
If you run your business well, this shouldn't be an issue.
Yes.
There's definitely stuff that you need to look at the granular level. So guys, we have Mike now. If you want to import any cars, his contact details, everything are here.
Yeah.
Mike, as we wind things down, tell me what your future plans are, because you're big into the importation space. Do you want to open a car showroom somewhere large?
Well,
What's the plans?
The car showroom is pretty competitive for me right now because based on the way we do business, I would still want to do the direct import.
Yeah.
Because it has less risk and it's easy for us to scout for a good condition unit for the customer than having the units kept here, because we also once in a while have cars that we can bring to sell, but it's really competitive here. You either have to have a fully spec'd car for a low price, and sometimes customers want to bring all the kinds of mechanics and expect the car to be sold cheap and have all the specs. So the direct import for us works pretty much well. I wouldn't, based on how the market looks,
For now,
I would say,
I'm
happy with the way things are looking. I would just want to have more confidence and customers to believe that importing directly is actually what they need to do.
Okay.
Because if a price is really good locally, either the car, the condition is not disclosed to you as the consumer.
Yes.
Or there's something that is done on the car and of course the dealer will not tell you.
Yes.
So we believe we give value to customers if you import directly.
Correct.
It's easy for you to even tailor make the car the way you want, because
Correct.
things like a special plate you'll only get if you do direct import or if you bring a unit on your own. So we feel we give our customers value by direct import. So our future plans, of course, is to have more clients within East Africa. We actually have customers in Uganda and Tanzania. Like in December, we sold about 5 units to the ambassadorship of Kenya.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and those are 0 mileage premium spec cars to Dar.
Okay.
So, of course, world over, the market is not looking really good. So we believe that things will open up, and we hope that business will be good for all of us.
So inshallah, let's say God blesses us on the coffee pump.
Yeah.
We get to a position where I'm able to afford a good sports car.
Yes.
But I want to get a sports car that's very unique to Kenya.
Yes.
What would you say? Let's be hypothetical. Let's work with a budget of 10 mic. Or even let's stretch it to 15.
Yes.
Let's say God is very good to us on coffee pump.
Yes.
What car would we go for? What sports car?
I would either recommend either a Panamera, something in the Porsche line.
Yes.
Or if you're lucky, you can get something like an RSQ8.
Yes.
Because you could get like around 18 mic a good RSQ8, like not very new, not very old.
How much is a G-Wagon for if we go for that?
G63.
Yeah.
The facelift.
Oh, yeah.
The facelift is landing around, let's say, 25, 27.
You see the guys are smiling over there because, I'm still on Fuliza right now.
Inshallah, it's going to come.
Vish, so you've heard that, which car, the coffee pump company car. Let's say God blesses us with subscribers. Mike becomes our official car supplier. Which car should we go for? Budget unlimited.
I would say Urus.
Yeah, Connie, you want 2 cars, company car. But you're not even part of the company. Joking. Number one. So which one? G-Wagon?
I would say G-Wagon.
No, to be very unique in Kenya. G-Wagons has become so common. Yeah. Why are we worried? We'll make the roads where we live by that time. That time we'll be staying in Muthaiga. So Mike, we'll be taking it to go Muthaiga Golf Club and back home.
You could actually get a really slick Porsche, like either GT2 or GT3.
Yeah.
But that's like past 50 mic there. Or
50 mic, eh?
Yes. Or you can get the same things like what we're seeing, the not Macans, the Panameras, just the slick sedans that have the
what
3
if we were
liter.
to go for? What about Ferrari? No one's saying Ferrari, Lamborghini.
Ferrari, those are
No, see, you can pick it up from home, go Muthaiga Golf Club, and then drop it back.
Those are way off the budget in terms of.
Give me a budget. Like, what are we?
Any
looking?
Ferrari, I think you should be looking at a minimum of 30.
30?
Minimum, yes.
So that means I have to work with you and Earl.
Because even there's a guy, there's a guy who was bringing an Urus, the Ndovu guy.
Yes.
He took it to UG because the taxes here were really crazy. I think he was being told to pay 25 mic. So he had to reroute the manifest to Uganda
We'll figure it out.
because he has an office in Uganda anyway. So gari Uganda UG.
So that means we have to get to 1 million plus subscribers. We have to open OnlyFans account. For the KRA duty OnlyFans, Dhruvan, you have to do that, yeah?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. If someone has a budget of 3 to 4 million shillings,
3 to 4 million shillings budget.
daily income, but fast as well.
So 3 to 4 million
Fast.
shillings
Apart from the
budget.
export,
Are you looking for German or JDM or either?
daily, but also fast.
Import, you don't have much choice because it's either you get the 6.5 or a turbo Harrier, the SU65, like what I was telling him. Because a car that you could slightly be almost fast is a Q5 B9, and that's past 4 million. It's like 4.5. There is no fast Subaru that I know import right now because the SKs are all natural aspirated. And some are even hybrid. So that's like a punda, hiyo ni kitu tu, very slow thing.
What's an R35 cost?
Those ones cost around 20 mic. Yeah,
Mike, unanisumbua bana.
20 mic. Because in Japan, they're costing around $100,000, $120,000.
Like when I look at the amount people, like in Kenya, have you ever just taken a drive and you've seen the amount of cars that are there?
Yeah.
Let's even look at the Land Cruisers and the Prado.
Yes.
And you're wondering, guys will just drop 15 to 20 to 25 to 30 million on one car.
Yes.
All the kids go to ISK. They have holiday homes in Mombasa. And here I'm telling Dhruvan, listen, what's your Fuliza limit? And it's 3,000 right now.
But personally, I would not. Okay, I still don't think a GTR is value for money, if you ask me, because for that budget, there are many cars that you can line up.
Here we're assuming gods have said, listen, there's only one podcast everyone will watch, it's Coffee Pump.
Yeah.
And then there's only one car importer will use, it's Mike.
Yes.
So we're assuming at that level, at a tax is not an...
Tell you
KRA
what,
wanataka
bro.
50 million. Chukua.
Look at
Take 51 million.
a GTR, you have to rebuild the gearbox at some point because it will still die, even the new ones.
Really?
Yes, the only one that somehow is you have a guarantee is the Nismo, but the normal R35 GTR, Izima Black Edition, Manini Pure, they have to kill the gearbox. Guys like Kina Jai Patel, the ones that we sold GTRs huko nyuma, how many gearboxes have they killed? Waki rebuild.
So it's that bad, eh?
Yeah, because okay, that's why I'm saying Nissan is pretty good, but there's something about the gearboxes that they never got it right. Because even for GTR, they've killed the gearboxes.
What's the Lexus, the LFA?
Yeah. That's a solid car now.
How much would that be for?
I'll have to now. That one is not on KRA CRSP, so we have to get the duty.
Tunaweza adjust some ratios over there.
Maybe it could fit that budget. It could fit that because Lexus, it's a solid car. Because Nissan, even Earl will tell you, like the finishes on a Nissan, you're saying they're the same on an X-Trail. There are some things that almost match the same, and you're paying like 15 million for this.
Okay. So inshallah, God blesses us. The podcast goes up.
Yeah.
We won't shy away from hard work. Or XRP, the coin, reaches $10,000. If then, nakupigia kesho.
I just got a Jimny, by the way.
Oh, ulipata Jimny, eh?
I bought a Jimny on Tuesday because I wanted a daily, but because I wanted to get a B9.5 SQ5, which is from 2022. So I'll either get that next year, but for now I'll just daily a Jimny because I wanted to see something that I'll work with in the meantime. Because I've always wanted a Jimny. Sometimes I have a Mjengo here, this, so you can pack it here. It just fits anywhere.
Suzuki
manual one.
Yeah, so a lot of people are talking about Suzuki Swift Sport.
Yes.
Do you do bikes as well?
We used to do, but the freight for bikes does not make sense in terms of a business perspective, unless it's bulk orders, like more than 5 bikes.
So this one, we have to be Bitcoin millionaires. Inshallah.
Yes, inshallah.
Mike, thank you so much, Kaka.
Okay.
I appreciate you taking the time to come.
Yeah.
It's been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, appreciate
One
it.
of many. So I think next we want to get you on Midnight Coffee, right?
Yes.
Where you bring in a G-Wagon.
Yes.
Jimny.
Ikifika nitaleta.
Ukifika Jimny tuende, we
Yes.
go for Midnight Coffee run in that car. Right?
Yeah.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Guys,
Thank you so much.
thanks for tuning in. This has been Coffee Pump. We'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.